All right, thanks. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, as I approach my almost 1400th episode of Chef AJ Live this Wednesday at 2 p.m., I meet a lot of wonderful guests, and occasionally they have such a good experience being on my show, they'll send me a little gift. I don't ask for it, but hey, I'm just really lucky, like, for example, this hat. But I recently received the most beautiful jewelry, really, I think that I've ever seen. It was from Dr. Carol Wroblewski. She was on my show. If you remember her, she lost 100 pounds without gastric bypass surgery. And she sent me I love things that are eclectic and beautiful. And so she sent me this necklace. Look at this. Everything is handmade and unique. And these gorgeous earrings, which when I wear, I actually get so many compliments on. I wore them to my improvisational acting class last week. And I remember people, especially the vegan chef Angelique, who maybe I'll have to get a pair for, mentioned them. And I said, my God, this is gorgeous. And I put a picture on social media and everybody's like, where do I buy it? Where do I buy it? I'm like, I don't know, because it didn't come with anything, like usually things come in a box. So she told me it was a friend of hers who's a vegan. And as I like to support vegan businesses whenever I can, and especially unique and beautiful things like this. So we found the artist. Her name is Justine Thompson. And it turns out that in addition to making jewelry, she has a fabulous story of how she faced her food addiction and became vegan and a mosaic artist. So please welcome her to the show. It's so nice to meet you. And your work is just beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to see it on you. You
look
great in it.
It's just stunning. And like I said, I'm not like a big jewelry person. I'm not like a girly girl. So sometimes I don't wear the necklace as much just because, I'm doing comedy, but I get so many compliments on this and it's just beautiful. And I hope you have a website or a way people can buy this if they're interested. Yes.
And I'll talk a little bit about that later as we finish up. I've got all my contact information. So
yeah. But first I want to know about you because if I'm given a choice and it was so much easier in LA where everybody was vegan, like to go to a veterinarian who's vegan or one that isn't, or a hairdresser, I always try to support vegan businesses. So I'm curious about your vegan story, when you became vegan and why.
Okay. Well, that information is part of my story, I guess, in facing my food addiction. And I'm going to talk about that. Would it be okay if I just do a little bit of introduction and then we go on to that?
I'm curious where you live. And
yeah, just like folks to know, Justine Thompson. I live in Avon, Indiana, which is west of Indianapolis. I've been here a long time. Grew up in Northern Indiana. I'm actually a retired mental health counselor. So I worked with teenagers and their families for 40 years. And I worked in the high school setting the last 27 years. So my career was actually doing a lot of listening to very troubled teens on a daily basis. And I've been retired 6 years. I have long-term food addiction recovery, and then it's been 37 years since I started really looking at the truth about the role that food had in my life. And then I became vegan 2 to 3 years into that recovery process. So first I had to really take a look at what was happening with my food. Then I started looking at the quality and what it really meant to have good health. So, and then as a result of kind of the progression of that whole process, I rediscovered my art, my passion for art. So that gets us started. And I think I'll just go ahead and start the slides because I do have some before and after pictures and some things that explain more about my food addiction recovery and veganism. So
sounds great.
Let's work on that. Bear with me.
Yeah, it's got to be on your desktop first. Like you have to be able to visually see it before you press screen share and then you click on it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm working with that. Okay, I've got Keynote up. So now let me try.
Yeah, you clicked screen share?
I did. Let me try again. I'm seeing desktop, but I'm only seeing us on there. I'm not seeing my keynote on the desktop. Let me.
Usually I use a PowerPoint, and if so, I could help you because you could send it to me and I could do your slides, but.
Well, we can talk for a couple minutes and I'll just have Jay come in and see if he's kind of my technology assistant. So, I want to be able to get those going because I've got lots of art to show you too.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Where do you sell your jewelry? And is every piece unique? And do you do any custom pieces? And what, I mean, it's not just jewelry though. You make a lot of different things.
I do. I do 2 small shows a year, and those are both during the holidays. That's how I get my art out there. A lot of it has been word of mouth, just people wearing the jewelry and then asking about it, and then people contacting me. So it's been a lot of word of mouth, and I haven't really, since I was working full time, most of the time I've been doing jewelry. I did not start a business. I just kind of did it on the side. So it's just now unfolding and opening up more. As I've finished retirement.
I'm curious if you ever teach classes. I would love to learn how to do something like this.
I haven't yet. I have, I've taught a child across the street, a 12-year-old who loves it, but I haven't done any classes. Are you seeing my slide?
I am not.
Okay. I am. So now we just need screen share, it looks like. Well, okay. I'm sorry this is happening. We went through this numerous times, but somehow it's.
Yeah, we probably should have started with the slides up. Sometimes that's easier than to figure it out during the broadcast.
Sure.
If you have it, you can maybe email it to me and I can run it.
Okay. Well, I think since we're live, we're still messing with it. In the meantime, I'm just going to start sharing my story. How about that?
Yeah, please do.
Jay's kind of working on this, and maybe he'll get it going. So facing my food addiction, gosh, I started recognizing my food addiction when I was about 22. I knew before that I had a problem. I always kind of had that small voice within that said, wow, you're going back for more, just kind of quantity eating, sometimes binge eating, especially drawn to the pleasure trap foods, of course. Sugar especially, and breads, fats, not unusual in terms of someone being addicted to certain foods.
This is your screen sharing.
Yeah, it's working now, by the way. Facing food addiction revealed a Mosaic artist.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
No worries. I understand. It's really, I get frustrated too when I. You kept your cool because you're vegan and. No, I'm just kidding.
You'll see on my opening slide, that's clearly a work in progress. That's a commission piece, actually. So I do commissions. That's the 3rd in a series. Your friend Carol Robleski has the first one in that series, actually. So that's in process. And then you'll see a picture of my before when I was in my early 20s, and I was just beginning to see, well, the weight was coming on clearly. I was 50 to 60 pounds heavier than I am now. And then the pictures on the right are in my first year of recovery. I lost the 60 pounds, and I see 2 different people there. I don't know about you, but I see 2 different people there. So, and when I look at my older pictures when I was still obese, I realized I really didn't appreciate my femininity. I didn't appreciate who I truly was as a person. I think I was always trying to camouflage the obesity. But when I lost weight, I felt pretty. I felt like I was in the body I was intended to be in. So those pictures for me, say more about who I really am. And when I was eating addictively, I was really not living my best life. So I started looking at my food addiction. The awareness came because because of the weight gain. My family started looking at patterns in our family. I had siblings that were looking at their drug and alcohol use, and I started looking at, I didn't use drugs and alcohol, but I started looking at what was happening with my food and my weight. Sneak eating, feeling guilty and shameful about my eating, feeling guilty and shameful about my body, emotionally very depressive, very anxious, shut down. Spiritually, I had a lot of fear-based beliefs, lack of guiding principles in my life, and just feeling very lost. And other people that have struggled with food addiction might relate to just this sense of trying to fill that void, always trying to meet a need that really wasn't about food frequently. The food had kind of taken on a life of its own, as we know happens with the pleasure trap foods. The losses I experienced with my food addiction, I had an art scholarship. When I was in the 8th grade, I had a mentor and she was able to get an art scholarship for me. I went to the class, very excited to go, but when I got there, I just totally froze. And I was just in so much fear. I couldn't express myself because that would be taking a risk. And what would the world think of my art if I put it out there? So I lost that class. I couldn't go back. I had a very disappointed mentor, as you can imagine. Other consequences of my food addiction: isolation, unchecked mental health issues, lack of direction, relationship challenges. And so at 22, I started just evaluating all that, looking at the patterns. Also looked at the potential health issues because my mother died from food addiction at 75. So it was for me looking in a crystal ball, really, because I was very similar to my mother in my eating patterns, my physical makeup. And she developed heart, kidney, all things that I'm sure your viewers are familiar with, diabetes, just so many health problems. And I knew that that's where I was headed. I wasn't experiencing any extreme health problems at the time I started looking at my food addiction. But I knew that I was headed in that direction. So the acceptance came with, I guess, that honesty with myself, coming out of denial, asking myself, is this really how you want to live? Is this how you want to do your life? And since my family had started accepting outside resources for help and looking at addiction in our family, I certainly had the awareness that it was time to evaluate where I was headed. And then the action I took on a food plan. At that time, I knew nothing about being vegetarian or vegan, nothing. I just knew that I needed to eat. I needed to not be obese. I needed to not be binging. I needed to not be eating just incredible amounts of sugar that I was eating on a regular basis, daily basis, continuous basis. I knew I was attracted to fried foods, fats. So I knew that there were some changes I needed to make, but again, I didn't know anything about vegetarianism or being vegan. So I attached to a support network and accepted help from that support network. It has an accountability piece to it. So I was checking in with other people that understood my food addiction on a regular basis. It helped with my emotional life, my coping skills, my spiritual life. And I just stayed with that food plan on a daily basis. I've basically had the same structure to my food plan for the 37 years. I'm not somebody that eats between meals. I prefer just to make decisions about food as little as possible. So I don't eat between meals. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat salty snack foods. I have some other binge foods I stay away from, have always stayed away from. And so that started my recovery process, working with the physical, emotional, and spiritual. So 2 to 3, I love this part of the story. It feels kind of like divine intervention for me, but 2 to 3 years into that recovery process and still staying involved with my support network, my husband met Jeff Novick. So they worked together for Kraft Food Service. Jay was selling a lot of cheese, just doing what Kraft does. And so they met, but then at that same time, Jay's doctor, my husband, Jay's doctor said to him, and he was normal weight at the time, but what's that got to do with it sometimes? Just said, if you keep eating like you're eating all the cheese and the meat, you are going to have a heart attack within 3 to 4 years. So that got Jay's attention, and it certainly got my attention. We'd just been married a couple of years when that happened. And he had met Jeff, of course, and Jeff had long-term, being vegan, that was long-term experience. And so at that time in their lives, there was something Jay could give Jeff support on, and Jeff began giving us support on this issue. And it was a pretty wonderful intersection of needs. So Jeff started sharing his expertise and turned us on to some literature. And at that time, that would have been 35 years ago, he encouraged us to look at Fit for Life, Diamond's work, and also Dr. John McDougall, his materials. So we began reading about it. Jay was a bit ahead of me, I would say. I was pretty resistant at first. I felt threatened by it because I'd always eaten meat and cheese. I mean, that sounds pretty basic, but it's what I was used to. Here I had been recovering and lost the 60 pounds based on a food plan that was, a meat protein, maybe meat and cheese protein, grains, starches, vegetables, and fruit. And that's how I ate every day. And that's how I lost the weight. So the idea of changing or letting that go, letting the meat go and the cheese go was threatening to me at first. So Jay was the first to make the change. And so I kept reading information about it and asking Jeff for resources, which I know, knowing Jeff, you would know he's a great resource, provided a lot of good information for us. And the education he provided and his resources provided gave me some courage to start making the changes to first vegetarianism. Cheese was the last to go for me. I liked my cheese. So, but I eventually did make that change. So the kind of learning about it and then making the changes was about a 1-year process. And I remember making the conscious choice to move past the resistance and cultivate willingness to change and to be changed by information, just learning about the impact of high fat, meat, dairy based food plan, just learning the health consequences, putting that all together, that puzzle together was really helpful and helped me to become willing to change. So yeah, that's how that unfolded. I do know that when I first became vegan, I was, I wanted to tell everybody about it. I wanted everybody to do it. And I did learn pretty quickly that there's receptivity sometimes, but just to be careful that, people share my experience when asked and be respectful of everyone has their process when it comes to looking at that issue. So, and it was also really helpful to stay connected with like-minded people, which I know is, again, pretty basic, but it's just so true. Staying in touch with people that understand and think in a similar way, or maybe have the same information about the consequences of eating meat and cheese and so forth. So, Yeah. So that's how I became vegan. That's been 34 years. I've never looked back. I've never eaten meat or cheese or do my best not to eat anything that has a mother. And I've never really regretted that change in any way, shape, or form. So there have been times in my process where I ate healthier than others and had to look at that and go, well, wait a minute. Even within my veganism, that's probably not the best choice. So try to modify.
How many years has it been for you now?
The best I can figure out recently is 34 years. So
that's good. That's a long time.
It is. Yeah.
And your husband as well?
Yes. Both of us, which is nice. We can support each other on that journey. So, and he had pre-arthritic kinds of experiences already. So that all cleared up when he gave up the dairy products. Both of us have generally good numbers. He's had a few challenges as both of us have with age. But the only medication that I take I'm 64. The only medication I take is thyroid medication. So nothing else. My numbers have all been good through the years. So I've not had any problems physically. So many benefits to being vegan. So many benefits. So yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does Kraft make anything vegan? Does your husband know? Is he still around?
No, he left and started a music career. So his journey also helped him to kind of recapture his true passion, which was music. So yes, this is me currently at 64 and grateful to be healthy body weight. And yeah, it's wonderful.
I'm curious though, how you knew about food addiction back then, because it's a word that really hasn't been used that much until recently.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. My family, again, as we started doing some exploring of the role of addiction in our family, I think, AJ, that was probably helpful in that, they were calling their drug and alcohol use and their patterns addiction. And I started looking at my food patterns. So, and we also had some outside help of people that understood addiction. So I just started trying to do any reading I could about it and exploring what it meant to be just driven by food. And the word overeating didn't quite do it. I just knew that as much as I intellectually wanted to stop eating the way I was eating, I was still compulsed to just keep, binging and keep eating large quantities of sugar.
You were an early adopter.
Yeah. I felt backed against the wall. So it took me 5 years though, even once I looked at the possibility that I was food addicted, and I got involved in a support system and I was exploring it. I still was resistant for some time. So it was when I was 27, I actually stopped, really made the food plan change and started doing something different and lost the weight. So it was still a process. It wasn't an overnight process for sure. But it's pretty wonderful to not be driven by those foods. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, because it really sounds like it was the refined carbohydrates, the sugar and flour that was really the problem. And of course, your dairy too is also addictive.
Yes. Oh yeah. I was slow to give that up.
Yeah, that's why it was so hard. Did you ever try other methods to lose weight before?
I tried hypnosis. I tried some of the commercial weight loss programs. You go to a number of things. My own self-imposed diets, of course. Many of us have tried those. Well, I'll just eat this food only, or I'll, try this diet, that diet. None of that worked for me. I always went back to the same patterns. So yeah. So any other questions about?
Yeah, I was just curious if you have a specific food plan other than it's vegan and I'm guessing largely unprocessed.
I eat really simply, and I admit I'm not much of a cook. So I eat, like for instance, lunch, we made 2 big pots of vegetable soup this week, and I had vegetable soup with maybe 6, 7, 8 different vegetables in it, some potatoes and sweet potatoes, an ounce of pecans and a fruit. So potatoes, brown rice, vegetables, fruit, pretty simple.
Yeah. And do you weigh and measure your food like so many people that identify with food addiction?
I do. Mm-hmm.
You feel like you still have to do that, huh?
Well, yeah, I choose to do that. I like the boundaries. And when I've had periods of time where I tried not doing that. It just didn't work as well for me. So yeah, it's just the comfort level that I have found works best.
Right. But you don't necessarily restrict. It's just that you're comfortable
right.
doing it. But it's not like you're trying to like lose weight or just, 7 ounces of vegetables or something like that.
No, you're right. It's the attitude that goes with it. So, and also I work really hard every day at dealing with what is going on in my life, whatever emotions, what challenges, what stresses, what great things might be going on, try to stay in the living aspect of it and not the control. So the weighing and measuring just gives me a guideline so that I can, not go back to old behaviors.
There's a live viewer, TS, asking, did your doctor ever mention the possibility of food addiction at the time?
No. And I was seeing a therapist at the time too. And I remember he said, keep a food journal. And I remember going to the therapist. Okay, well, this is what I ate for breakfast. And he about fell out of his chair. He had no real idea that when I said I was eating addictively, that I would eat, 12 pieces of cinnamon toast for breakfast or whatever. So, I didn't have any professionals at that time that understood it. No, I think today there are a lot more. I think absolutely, but not at that time.
Do you find that you have trouble moderating whole natural food, like say kale?
No.
Yeah. Because it's the food that's the problem, not the behavior.
And I eat salads every day, and I don't have a tendency it doesn't make me want to binge. So.
Right. Exactly. Thank you.
So it's pretty wonderful to have the relief and the sanity around it all. And to just live totally differently in my body and with food. And yes.
Thank you. Susanna says, did your experience as a mental health counselor help you understand your own food addiction?
Yes, that's a great question. It did, because I did a lot of extra training in addiction when I was preparing to be a counselor, and even after I was counseling. And I worked with addicted families a lot, addicted students that came through my office. And in an interesting way that kind of supported my perspective about my food. So, good question. It did. I hadn't thought of it in those terms.
Nice. Do your friends give you a hard time about your food choices? And do you have a hard time when you eat out?
Early on, I felt really different, than family members and other people. I felt different. And on my workplace, I would pack my lunch every day, and people would ask me questions and say things about it. So I really had to practice over the years, just not listening to that feedback, and just realizing that only I had to understand what I was doing and why. I did experience some of that and had to work through it. I do eat out, and that's probably where I make my
exceptions.
I do. So,
if you like, unless you have more slides, we could stop screen share so we could see you bigger now if you like.
Actually, I do have some more.
Oh, then good. Then keep them up, because that's fine.
We're going to go to talk about art. Just let me know when we're ready to move on to art.
Yeah, well, there's one more question.
Sure.
Cece, were there any physical symptoms in helping to manage your food addictions like there are with alcohol?
Any physical symptoms? Not
Like,
quite sure.
like maybe when you stopped eating cheese or sugar, like any kind of withdrawal or detox.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. 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 As a matter of fact, one of the things I remember the best is when I gave up artificial sweeteners. I was already into my food plan, my weight loss food plan, and I gave up artificial sweeteners. And I had, because I found that even though I wasn't eating sugar, that I was still drawn to eating or drinking like diet drinks and putting artificial sweetener in my oatmeal, that kind of thing. And I realized the consequence I was paying for that in terms of the chemicals and just the high tolerance. And it just seemed like more, I had to have more. So I quit that 100% 30 some years ago, but I had a headache and my gums ached for about 10 days, every day, every afternoon. It was pretty horrible. I don't doubt for a second, the impact the food had and the resulting withdrawal when people share about that. I definitely had it. And I did notice, like, if I accidentally had cheese sometime later, cheese or sugar, my throat starts kind of getting these little spiky things in it, and I have ill effects of that. So I know my body has gotten used to not having those things, and I appreciate it. But yes,
Nice.
I believe in the withdrawal process for me.
Yep. Susan says, are there whole foods that you do binge on or could binge on?
Binging is not an option. I haven't binged for the 37 years. I haven't eaten between meals for the 37 years. It's just not an option. That's why I continue, talking with others that understand the addiction, get support so that I don't go back to that. So I do not binge on anything.
Nice.
Not an option.
And
that's something I've done on my own. I keep referring to support networks and talking to people about it and talking to like-minded people. I want to be really clear about that it's not like I'm willpowering through this. But I just can't risk going back to those behaviors. So
great.
It hurts me on all levels. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you. And TS says, do you weigh and measure only calorically dense foods like nuts, or do you do everything, even things like greens?
What I tend to do is I get an idea if my salad's going to be a 2.5 cup salad, I get an idea what bowl that fits in. And then every day I put that amount in my bowl. So I'm not getting my measuring cup out every time I do my salad, but I have a general idea of what that amount is in a particular bowl that I use. Nuts, because I do appreciate nuts and like them, I measure them. I always measure them. Like at lunch, I had an ounce of pecans. I just try to have a healthy respect for the foods that are more calorie dense because they're the ones I would be drawn to eat more of. And I try to be consistent. I am consistent with weighing and measuring those so that I don't lose the privilege of those foods. I don't want the consequence of eating too many nuts or too many avocado or, the foods that could really put the pounds on and really start to maybe become more obsessive and compulsive about. So,
you respect calorie density. You understand
what it can do. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious where you met Carol, because I want to get to the exciting, not that this wasn't really, but I'm sorry to say it. I want people to know where they can get this beautiful jewelry if they want.
Yeah, let's go on to that. Carol's just a mutual group of friends. I met her and she is an incredible creative spirit and just loves art. So she's got a really large collection of my work and it's pretty wonderful. So that's how she ended up with some of my jewelry.
Now that I think about it, because I've interviewed her twice, there must have been something hanging in her house that I said, oh my God, that's gorgeous, which made me think about getting me a piece of your work. I think that's what happened.
You did. Absolutely is what happened. And then that one thing led to another and she decided to send you some. So how did I get back to my art? Well, I think removing the food put me in a position to face my fears. I had a lot of fear about, like I said earlier, I had frozen in that art class, fear about putting myself out there. I chose a career in social work over art. I think that art felt even more risky than just going out and helping people with their lives. So when I removed the food, became vegan, which I believe starting my recovery process that recovery process for me from food addiction demands more health. And that's why I ended up learning more about food, the quality of food, how it affects my body and my health. And I think it also demands continuing to find our best selves. And so I started reclaiming my art through that process. And what I did was I worked through a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Fantastic book for anyone who has fear around putting themselves out there and taking risks with art or other creative endeavors. I did that. I took art classes. I did photography, sketching. And I really worked at letting go of some old sabotaging type beliefs that, were fear-based. I can't do this, or I can't do it good enough, or I'm not good as other people. I don't know, just a number of things I had to look at in order to start doing art again. So just a couple of pictures there of me loving doing art. Then working at the high school, I met Lori Gatlin. She's on the left. And Lori was my art mentor. And she now is a professor and administrator at California State University, Long Beach. Very talented person. And I think the significant thing about her is that she just believed I could do what I wanted to do. She didn't accept my excuses. She didn't accept my fears. She just said, oh, you want to try that? Let's do it. Here, we've just painted a bunch of paper because I made handmade books. As I was finding my art again, I made a book for every one of my nieces and my nephew, a full book, handmade, with all of their life memories in it for their graduation. But she started getting me involved in other kinds of art, and eventually led to the Mosaic. And here's just a picture of the book, one of the books that I made. That's one of my nieces, Allison, and just some of the pages, hand-painted pages, paintings, photography, just a wonderful art expression. This is one of the first mosaics I did in Lori Gatlin's classroom. I drew these onto tiles, and then I painted them and fired them. But this would be an example of me. I just saw a vintage tile in a book about art, and I said, "Oh, these are beautiful." She said, "Why don't you draw them?" Are you serious? And she's like, "Let's just try it. Come on." So I did, and it's really nice outcome. I love this one, Flower Fairies. And then these are the peacock on the left is the first one that I made. And the one in the center, I just made a couple years ago. And I like looking at those two because I can see my progress you can see the peacock is so much more alive and dynamic than the one on the left, although they were nice outcomes. And on the right is a shower. It's a single person shower that I actually mosaiced in the shower wall. So these were some of the projects that Lori kind of helped me have the courage to venture into. She had a class for teachers after school at the high school where I worked, and she taught Mosaic in one of those classes, and that's how I became so attached to it. And this is another one that I did under her instruction in an adult ed class that she taught. Very colorful and whimsy. Here's a mosaic of my cat, Elvis. The first is the photo I used for the mosaic. The second one is before. It
doesn't even look like a mosaic. It looks like a photograph.
It does. Thank you. It's nice.
Wow.
And then the one, I'm going to show the process here in a minute of mosaic and kind of how it works, but the one on the far right that is grouted after all the glass goes in. Here are some more mosaics that I've done. The one in the middle is Carol Gleski's. It's in her mosaic. It's in her kitchen. It actually is above her sink between her cabinets, and that's one of her cats on the right. That's exactly what her cat looks like, Otis. So, and then that's a mirror that I did, a commission mirror on the right. A few more pieces I've done, tabletop on the top right, and then on the left, I've done a balloon series of an adult and child walking into the sunset. That's all ceramic. and the tabletop ceramic. And then that's a piece of jewelry and glass on the lower.
This stuff is just stunning. I mean, it's almost should be in a museum. So are you saying people could commission you? Like hypothetically, if I sent you a picture of Bailey, my dog, you could make something like that?
I've done some of that.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a commission. The cardinal was a commission for a person's parent. So this shows you a little bit of the process with mosaic. On the left, I've drawn in the design, and in the center, you can see I'm placing the pieces. So mosaic is basically, it's an ancient art. It's the art of taking small pieces of tile, ceramic, glass, beads. Gosh, the materials are just endless.
Is it teachable? Like, did you learn it? Because you have to, like, for example, I've seen people make mosaics out of Jelly Belly jelly beans, but like, is the process the same regardless of the medium? Like whether you use tile or glass or jelly beans, like do you first have to sketch it out, for example?
That depends on the individual artist's style. It depends how detailed a person wants to work. I tend to work on some things very small and with great detail. So I will sometimes do a sketch first, just so I have a guideline. But gosh, it just depends on what final outcome. I think I was attracted to mosaic partly because when I first started, there was so much freedom and didn't feel like I could do it wrong. It didn't feel like that huge of a risk. You know, you break up some pieces of tile or do broken dishes, and you can put it back together and make it look like whatever you want it to look like. And so then as I progressed, I more detailed, more fine designs. So, but I like that it felt less risky than maybe doing a painting or a drawing for me.
I mean, it sounds like a tremendous amount of fun. And if there was a class offered, I would love to do this.
You're in California, right?
In Northern California. I've done glass fusion where I broke glass and glued it to things, but never to make it look like anything.
Okay. I was going to say there are a lot of mosaic artists in parts of California. So.
Will you ever come out here and do a show so I could see everything?
I love California. I will say that. So here's another example. This is one I just did over the summer. And this design on the left was my drawing actually from when I was in late high school or early college. And I just happened to keep that and pulled it out and thought, well, I'm going to do something with that. So you can see that I've drawn it onto glass and then started placing cut glass. Here's a sample of the tools used to cut glass called nippers. And then placing and gluing the glass.
What kind of glue do you use?
Weld bond. And then I have another one that works especially well with glass. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it'll come to me. So here I've placed glass. What I'm doing here in the center is I'm wanting to grout. So grout is just like if you grouted a tile floor in a bathroom. I taped it off so that I could just grout this portion that's inside the blue tape. It's a process. And then here I've grouted her and I've got her covered now so that I can grout the background. It's kind of a lengthy process, really. And then you can see the grout is on the glass. And then after it's all in, wipe it off, just like you would a tile floor. And then that was the final result.
Have you ever done one with food? I mean, obviously it wouldn't last, but like you probably could, right? With fruits and vegetables?
Probably. I would think so.
That would be so cool. You know, somebody once told me art is the medicine for the soul.
I buy that. It is for me.
I mean, believe me, there's nothing I enjoy. I'm not even good at it, but I love any kind of art class or doing arts and crafts. Like I'll go to even to paint night, or it doesn't matter, woodworking. It's just, there's something, and I think it's probably one of the things that really helps reset or rewire the brain for people with addictions. I think crafts are so underrated in our society. You know, I feel like that if you have an addiction, you know, lose yourself in something. And like people say, well, I don't have any room for my house or thing. Well, so what? Then learn to knit and make knit caps for kids with cancer. Right. You know, make it a higher purpose. But like because there's a lot people just see me like as one thing, like this person that lost weight. That's like the smallest part of my life. Like art is so important to me. Like I go to art shows incessantly, even if I can't afford to buy, and I try so hard to support artists. And my home, anytime I have any bit of extra money, that's what I would want to buy, is just a piece of art. My favorite artists are, you probably haven't heard of them, Leonid Aframiv, and
we have a piece of his.
yeah. Oh my God. And actually, I'm going to contact them, even though he passed away, and see if the children want to come on the show, because his art is just like so spectacular, and just looking at it makes me happy. And then there's another artist named Justin Coopersmith that I have a couple pieces of. But I mean, art is just, God, imagine a world without art.
Mm-mm. It really reaches inside of you, doesn't it?
It would be so colorless. I mean, and like this place I live now, it was a spec house, so I didn't get to choose my paint color. I mean, I guess I could have painted the whole thing over. It would have been an extra expense. Usually I put a little color in their white walls, and it's like, oh my God. But when you have beautiful art, I wish you could just see my office. It's like, I just love looking at beautiful things. And what's more beautiful than art?
Exactly. Well, we have that in common. It's wonderful. I get up every day. Well, I have certain rooms I like into. I can appreciate the same piece of art every day and just sit and look at it. And I love that. And I agree. I think creativity, I think of you though, AJ, your creativity must come out in your recipes and some of your cooking experiences.
I try, but people I don't have photography skills. And I just had this person criticizing me on Facebook, how disgusting my food looked. And I wasn't posting the picture because it was beautiful. I was basically trying to teach the point about calorie density, showing, how much vegetable to starch. It wasn't supposed to be like a book food photo, but people are so nasty. But yeah, I do. I just like to make things. My mom was one of the few working moms in 1960. And so I had to spend a lot of time alone, and she would give me like a box, like a shoe box or a strawberry box and some supplies. And she goes, go make something. And I did. And to this day, there's nothing I love more than making things, whether it's food or my vision boards. I think I love art. And the fact that you're a vegan artist, I love people to be more aware of your work and where they can get it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all that.
Sure.
So then I started, I've been doing Mosaic for 20 plus years, but in 2008, I discovered if I made jewelry, I could actually finish a piece in a short period of time. So many of my projects take days or weeks or months. So here are some examples of fine people wearing my jewelry. And I do pendants, rings, and earrings, and have sold just a few thousand of these. Actually, they've been really enjoyed, and they also make great gifts. So there have been lots of people that buy them for gifts around the holidays and so forth. Here are some more, and I typically kind of work by colors. So you can see they're divided into gold, silver, and these are my beach colors on the right here. Some earrings.
Are any two pieces alike? Like, for example, if somebody, once we stopped screen share, saw my necklace and wanted I'm not giving them mine, but if they wanted the exact same one or similar, would that be possible?
They never come out exactly the same, but if someone asked me for that, I've got that type of glass. That's the glass that's in your pendant is actually called smalti, and it's made in Italy. It's transparente, actually. So it's a transparent smalti. So I do have that glass, and I do have mermaid. You have a mermaid, I believe, in the bottom of the pendant. I have different types of mermaids. So I can make them similar, but they never come out the same because I'm cutting every piece of glass separately.
Well, when we stop screen share, I'll hold it up really close to you so people can see the detail. I didn't, honestly, until you just told me, I didn't even know there was a mermaid.
Yes, she is hidden away down there on the bottom.
Nice.
So that's really all of my photos. That's one that's available right now that I'm selling, the hydrangeas. That's an example of my current work. And there's my contact information also. And I'm glad to communicate. On the Facebook page, Mosaics by Justine, I have posted those groupings, and you can enlarge them and look at the individual pieces. And if anyone's interested in a piece that they see on that Facebook page, I can send more photos of it, tell you what type of glass, what kind of vintage pieces might be in the art, and the size of it and so forth. So those kind of details I can share. If anyone has an interest, you're welcome to contact me to direct message through Facebook.
Great. This was wonderful. I mean, I really enjoyed learning your story. Even if it was just about the art, I'm so happy to learn about what you do and how you do. I'm going to stop your screen share now, if that's okay.
That's my final.
Okay, because I'd like to see you. What are you wearing any of your art right now?
I am, but now I can't see you. Let me.
Uh-oh.
I'm coming. I'm just going to get rid of this. I should be able to close this out. I'm wearing a pendant that I've made that has reflective dichroic glass in it. It has a vintage glass piece in the center. So, and then I've just put a turquoise. That's what's nice about the pendants too. Like you've put a creative necklace with yours. You can.
Oh, no, this is, oh, you mean, are you saying
that? Did Carol send the wire?
I didn't even realize, guys, look at this. I didn't realize this was Carol. Are you watching? So Carol basically bought the pendant and added it. Oh, that was so nice.
Did she add the neck wire?
Well, I don't know. If you didn't send it to me, this came like this, but look at, I don't know if you can see, but look how stunning. That's the mermaid. Look at that. Well, I love the wire. I mean, the wire is exquisite.
That looks really nice.
Let's get a close-up of this. See, because my favorite color is purple followed by blue and green. And so it's just, I don't know if she knew what my favorite colors were, but it's spectacular.
She said, yeah, she told me that, she knew that you loved purple. There's just a few more pair of earrings, just fun stuff.
And if you live near me, I'd be buying every single one because I'm like an earring junkie. And there's a question from Mona. How long does like your pieces of art or pieces of jewelry take you to make?
Okay, I'm going to show you. This is one in process right now.
Beautiful.
I don't know if you can see the reflection of the sky is just stunning. It's not grouted yet. This has been 60 hours. So that's cutting.
Well, that's why art costs what it does, because it's not like printing a Xerox copy, it's everything is, I really respect that about art.
So it's the grouting, the last step in putting the grout in is a huge finishing piece to it and really make it.
Would you come to California and like work with me and we'll make stuff? I just think it's
so
fun,
doesn't it?
I'll give you a place to stay. Okay. Where do you source the glass from?
Okay. Kokomo, Indiana, which is an hour from me, has one of the oldest glass factories in the world. They provide stained glass. They provide stained glass, just for all kinds of projects all over the world. So I make trips there and stock up. Sometimes I order online, very challenging because it's really hard to see the texture and the color ordering online. But I do more and more of that because we have less and less art stores open, live art stores. Hobby Lobby would be the most inexpensive place to buy stained glass. The quality is a little different than some, but I have purchased a few colors there. I go to antique malls, flea markets, pick up old rhinestone jewelry, all kinds of vintage jewelry, vintage pieces. I put about anything I can into a mosaic that'll work. I just love that part of it. Make it three-dimensional.
Yeah, that's really cool. Marianne says, what's the difference between stained glass and mosaic?
So stained glass is a leaded glass process. So you're ending up with an independent piece of art that's glass put together by lead and a melting process of the lead. Mosaic always has a base to it. So, for instance, this mosaic, I just found this old frame at an antique store, and it has so I'm applying the ceramic and the glass to a foundation, so you cannot see through it. So it's not transparent like stained glass is intended to be. You cannot see through with the mosaic. The cardinal that you saw earlier, that I did on glass, and a person could put that in a window but the person didn't end up hanging in the window because it looked more beautiful against the wall. So mosaic pieces are attached to a foundation and then grouted in, or sometimes it's left without grout. Stained glass is transparent and it's done in a leaded glass process.
Do you think anyone can unleash their inner artists, or some people just, I think a lot of people just are so judgy of themselves. Like even when you go to paint night, like paint night's just for fun, I mean, it's not like you're trying to get into the Louvre with your thing. And I've gone with people that just get so frustrated, they'll paint their whole painting brown because it's not good enough. I think that a lot of that comes from childhood. And for me, I don't care. It's like that song, sing your song, make it, don't worry if it's not good enough for anyone else to hear, sing your song. And when I'm doing art, I'm not great, but it's like so fun. I don't care. I mean, to me, it's great. Like it's great for me because it's like the best I could do at that time. I'm not comparing myself to, who's my favorite artist? Well, you can guess one of them.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, I just wish people.
I agree with you. No, I think everybody's capable of art. I think the expectations we put on ourselves can really sabotage it. And I think that's why that mentor I was talking about was so significant for me, is that she just said, you can't mess it up. She said, if you make a mistake, we'll work with it. We'll just modify it. We'll make it piece
with food. You can't really, you can put too much salt in. That's kind of hard to fix, or too much spice. But the motto of my culinary school is it's not what you can make, it's what you can fix. And I say the same thing applies to art.
Mm-hmm. And I use the vision mapping process a lot too, AJ. It sounds like you like that. And when I was working through all this art and kind of setting goals, I used vision maps and tried to really open myself up to the idea that I'm capable of doing what I want to do. And it's going to look like my art. Sorry about that. It's across the room, or I would stop that.
Renee says, I do too, Chef AJ. I've explored all the art forms in all my life and used them therapeutically. That's why in hospitals, and especially in rehab, they have something called art therapy, music therapy, because I just wish people would, because I think especially people that have food addictions or addictions, if they would, honestly find a hobby, an outlet, and like this, where I used to live in the desert, La Quinta, this famous art studio where, I used to take every kind of medium there was, finger knitting and mixed media, and the owner or the founder of it used to be an alcoholic, and this is how she recovered, was by building an art studio and now giving back to the community. So I think that could be where it could help people. Is somebody asked if it's enamel, if your jewelry pieces were is your jewelry enamel work?
No, not at all. It's me cutting glass or taking other found pieces or purchased pieces, and I'm putting all the pieces then in together, gluing them in, and then I'm grouting them. I'm putting grout into the jewelry. So no.
Maybe make some pieces with fruits and vegetables for our audience, and like that, I think people would buy them. So best way to contact you is to go to your Facebook page or email you if they see one of these beautiful pieces that they want to get.
Well, yep, they're welcome to contact me through Facebook, through Instagram, and I'll be glad to communicate with you about what you might be interested in. Well, thank you so much for having
me. Thank you for your work, and thank you for being vegan.
Thank you.
It was so nice to meet you.
Wonderful way to go.
Susanna's saying, would you ever consider doing Zoom classes for us to teach us how to do that? That's a great suggestion, Susanna.
Send me an email, and that's always up for discussion.
Anything is possible. Thank you. So nice to meet you.
Thank you. And thank you for viewers for being interested.
Oh, yes. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow. We have 2 special shows for Valentine's Day. The first one at the regular time of 11 a.m. Pacific time is Feeling Great with Lissa and Nate. They're going to be making, in honor of Valentine's Day, Lady and the Tramp raw vegan marinated mushroom marinara. And there's also another show in an hour. Lauren Bernick is going to be doing a vegan chicken salad on a pretzel bun. Take care.